everybody here is part of the team, so to speak, or, so, anybody want to address the open forum that's not listed on the agenda? Okay. We'll move on to, number 4, regular agenda, 4A, public hearing, consider amending the Code of Ordinance of the City of Nacogdoches, Texas, Chapter 78, Signs, Article 1, in general, Article 4, permits, and Article 5, regulations for on-premises signs by district of the Code of Ordinances to define feather-type signs and allow for further control of placement, maintenance, and the number of times these signs can be used throughout the year.
All right, good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Nathan Dietrich. I am a third-party consultant for the City of Nacogdoches in the Community Development Department. As stated, we are here to discuss the text amendments to the feather-type signs that we have proposed here. Currently, this is, or how it started out, we kind of wanted to start it out with the why. Oh, let me just say something real quick. Just so you guys know that this particular agenda item starts on page 3 and goes through 25. So if there's any questions that you might have, we can reference those numbers, those page numbers, and we can get to it fairly quickly.
Okay.
So
That's Lily is on there. Yeah, I see that number. Last.
Hi, yep, I
Okay.
just called in,
Glad
and I'll
you
be
can make it.
connecting soon.
Thanks, Lily.
So, as a summary to why this particular item is before us today, is that it was an inquiry actually by a council member about the prevalence of feather signs in and around our town. Many that were in disrepair. Historically, these have been allowed, but they were never policed appropriately. There was no restriction specified in the code, and then it was asked by planning and the code staff, which we discussed in and amongst an internal meeting, as to what those types of uses and restrictions and maintenance might look like if we were to put something like this as an ordinance. Just as a reminder, here is pictures of these feathered flags, if you will, or teardrop flags, as some people might call them. They're used for a wide variety of items for grand openings, maybe, hey, I got some leasing items that we want to lease the apartments out. As you can see, when they do become tattered and torn, they are kind of an eyesore. And then also, since we didn't have a number of flags that you were allowed on site, people could put as many as they liked. And so what we wanted to do was we wanted to provide you with what we believe to be a reasonable ordinance when it comes down to these particular types of signs.
Question real quick. What's the difference between a feather sign and the sign that has the blows the air through it and waves? Or what is that called?
They call it a whole bunch of different things. I think we would call that, per our ordinance, it's like a continuing movement flag, or a movement.
Okay.
You
No.
talking about? Are you talking about the
there's
people that dance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the
there's a
dancing
difference
people
between
signs.
Dancing signs.
There are
Yeah.
differences. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
It's a human sign.
or a moving sign.
Oh, moving sign. Okay, yeah.
So, what we are proposing before you today are to put a definition within our ordinance under 78, which is our sign ordinance, and that is, basically a feather sign, aka a teardrop, means a sign in a feather, flutter, square, teardrop, or half drop, usually self-supported or supported by a flexible pole and firmly affixed to the ground. So, in addition to that, we also, within 78, we have some additional information that calls out feather signs where they are, it's 78-4 is actually signs that are prohibited, and under subsection 19, it states that the feather sign is prohibited except for as allowed under 78-98 through 78-100. So when you go to that section, it gives you the rules and regulations that go along with it. We also needed to address the idea of having this sign in our permit fee schedule, and so we are requesting that this sign have a fee of $25 when it does come through a permit. So there will be a new permit that is created along with a fee that is for $25, and that will amend. This is a proposal to amend that fee schedule, so this is recognized by the city, and then also.
Per sign?
Yes, ma'am.
So if they have 4 of these things
it's $100, right?
They would, but you'll also see that they're only allowed to have this when we go down to where the exceptions are, that they're only allowed to have these a certain number of times a year. So they can't just continually have these. And with our new new permitting software, we should be able to easily govern that and police that internally within staff. So it doesn't become, oh, you know, you're not making a little mark on this particular location or parcel, right?
Right.
And so under number subsection 15 and 78-4, feather signs may be used subject to the following regulations. So I'm just gonna walk through this just so everyone can hear it, or unless you guys would not like me to say these out loud, but I think for the sake of this amendment, we can walk through what those requirements are or regulations are. Securely attached to the ground by approved mounting system designed for its specific purpose and to ensure the safety of the sign and citizens. It shall not be located in an area as to create an obstruction that would create a visual obstruction, traffic hazard to motorists. It may not be located inside the public right-of-way. Maximum area that is allowed for these signs will be 20 square feet. The maximum height of these signs will be 12 feet measured from the ground to the top of the sign. It shall be maintained in good repair, and should the sign become tattered or torn, it shall be replaced or removed. It shall not be illuminated, and spacing shall be no closer than 50 feet between feather signs. So, Commissioner Carroll, is that if that's the case, is that if there was multiple entities or tenants at a strip center, each of those could have a particular feathered sign, but each of them would only be allowed to have it for 30 days. And they would have to be spaced at least 50 feet apart. Permits must be obtained for these signs. Each permit shall be valid for 30 days. Each occupancy may obtain no more than 4 these feather type signs per year, and shall not be located in the historic district, downtown historic district. We just put this in here for a graphic just to kind of show you is that we are proposing that in these areas that they would only be located within B1 and B2, and then
It says signs permitted in B1, B3, and M zoning districts?
Yes, I'm sorry, thank you. In the M zoning district. And so this just kind of gives you a visual of where those might be located within the city. If you had any questions about that. And then we also did a city comparison just to make sure that we were in line with some of our sister cities, and most of them did have either a reference to a feathered sign or a feathered flag. All of them they were prohibited, but with exception, and either they met what we are currently proposing for limitations, or they were lesser than, or might have had some differentials between the height and, you know, the square footage that was allowed. But we believe that what we presented before you is a reasonable requirement.
Nathan, can
Yes.
you walk me through, how did we come to $25 as a permit for these things?
It was just in comparison to what other permits were, and we think that was at a low end, because what we don't want to do is all of a sudden just go all the way to the other side of the pendulum, and then say $100 when people aren't even used to this. But it gives us a little bit of time for us to increase that over the next couple of years if we deem we see that's fit.
Yeah, because I was thinking on the other end, I was like, ooh, $25 kind of high, but you know, I obviously don't run a business for a reason. So, what do y'all think about that?
I think it's reasonable.
Doesn't seem like a lot of money for a business to pay to put a sign up.
Yeah, I would say.
I'm just going to reference you to page 18 of your packet. You'll see the prices or the fees that are for some similar signs. So your pole banner signs, $25. Balloon flavor signs.
Okay.
So that was kind of just being in line with those other signs. That's kind of the number we picked.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So with that, staff would recommend as the item is proposed. And if you have any questions, we're here. We'd be happy to answer.
Nathan, it's Lily. The last time we talked about it, B2, you just read it out loud, but is B2 included in that?
Yes, ma'am?
Okay, great, thank you.
And the only thing I would probably make you aware of is that when you look at all of those areas within, you know, there are some of these signs that I showed in one of the photos, is that in multifamilies, you know, those multifamily type uses, they tend to use those signs as, hey, guess what, we have vacancies and whatnot. So that would, they are currently allowed to be used in that manner right now, but if this is to pass, they will no longer be allowed to. So that was just one of those types of land uses that you might hear some grumblings from.
Forgive my ignorance on this, and I should know this. Are apartment complexes covered under, are they covered under B2?
No, they are.
It'd be R4.
They'd be our apartment complexes would be under R4. So the larger apartment complexes in town would be restricted from using, okay,
Yes, sir.
which is probably what you were insinuating, perhaps.
Now,
Oh, they are? I apologize. All together?
Apartment complexes, multifamily apartments
So all of,
are allowed in
And there
B2.
are some apartments that are B2.
okay.
Particularly like on North Street, yeah, okay.
But if they were in R4, they wouldn't be allowed.
Okay.
Understood. So they would, if they were to be, I'm just saying this out loud, so if they were to be used, they would have to be zoned B2 versus R4.
so do we think that might create problems?
What that came up where. Sorry, I think that came up the last time, because there's a lot of multifamily apartments in R4 that use those banner signs for now leasing, things like that. I think we might need to maybe reconsider.
Yeah, I think so.
R4.
It, you know, thinking high level with it, I'd hate to alienate one apartment
Right.
complex from another just based on where they are geographically located, so.
Yeah, and the way that our ordinance works, and now I remember our conversation before, is that because in R4, you don't have just apartments, you can also have single-family duplexes and the like. And so I think there was a concern, and maybe we can just put that as a
Stipulation.
or an exception, to say that if in R4 and if actually for multifamily purposes, they're allowed to use such sign.
Okay.
Would you think that's, okay, we can change that and make that part of your recommendation?
Yeah,
I'm fine with that. But just for, okay, so clarification on page 3 of what I have in my book, it says signs permitted in B1, B3, and M zoning districts. So it does not, am I missing something for B2? Does B2 get included because B3 is there?
So the way it's set up, the next section in the sign ordinance is going to be two.
Okay.
And it's going to include everything from in the previous
Yeah.
Okay.
section, or everything that preceded it.
Thank you.
So
that's come up before too. Thank you for reminding me. Okay. Any other questions for Nathan on this one?
No, so as I understand it, we're going to put in, staff's going to come up with some kind of stipulation for those apartment complexes. Okay.
We don't need to make that recommendation right now. Do we need to make a motion on that? Probably would.
I would, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would put, yeah, 'cause
Okay.
it is your recommendation to have.
Tell me tell me what
What's the
we're,
language we need to
tell me
use
what
for
we're
that?
recommend, I mean, tell me what you had just said.
Well, we can just, we can draft that for you. We can just say that we are going to include these types of signs within R4 zoning district, and only when it's going to be used as a multifamily development.
Okay.
Or land use. We can make it as simple as that.
Okay.
So for us,
I'll make a,
you got it?
yeah, I'll do
Okay,
it.
I can second it.
Okay. If not, Lily, do you have anything else for Nathan relative to this one topic? If not, I'm gonna close it.
No,
Okay.
we answered the B2 question.
Okay. Then we'll, yep, yes, sir, thank you. Hey, I was gonna make her happy and remember. So we'll close it and open up for, public comment. Are there anyone that would like to address the the group here? Okay, we will close it for public comment. Is there any other questions or deliberations between the commission here? Okay, then I'll make a motion to accept this as written with the exception of that we will, the city staff will add in addition to R4 and only for multifamily entities. However you need to frame that up, but
Yes,
you'll
sir.
come back with that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
all opposed say same. Okay, so unanimous with everyone that's here, including Lily.
All right, so moving on to agenda item 4B. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So just let me get it out there. 4B, consider recommendation to the city council for an ordinance amending chapter 46, health and sanitation, article 3, smoking pollution control, and chapter 118 zoning, article 1, in general, article 3, district regulations, and article 4, supplementary district regulations to regulate the use of retail tobacco, vapor, and smoke store. Turn it over to you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and again, just for clarification purposes, this is in your packets, this is from page 25 through 68.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. So as part of this summary is that there was some feeling that in looking over the last year or so that there was a proliferation of smoke, vape, and CBD shops in town. It was noticed from, I believe it came from our city manager, and we wanted to see if there was an opportunity for us to actually put some restrictions on these types of uses, since they do have an impact to our overall public safety. And so with that, in comparison, and you'll see a little bit later on in my presentation, is that a lot of the times the way that we can do this is not to prohibit the land use altogether, but we can also put restrictions on it. So one of those restrictions might be is that we have a distancing requirement from of these land uses that that are vulnerable to these types of uses for smoke and vape and whatnot. So hospitals, schools, churches, public parks. And so we were thinking that we would do something very similar to when alcohol is also close to these locations, and or sexually oriented businesses. So regulate it very similarly to that. So just so we're consistent as a body. So we also discussed allowing these by right or SUP or with exception. So we kind of came to a point where we were thinking that we'll still allow these within our ordinance. And in doing so, we needed to make some changes that in section 46 about, which is health and sanitation, we needed to make an amendment to the definitions. So we adjusted those definitions to see to what you can see before you right now. And then in chapter 118, which is our zoning ordinance, we referenced or called out retail tobacco, vapor, smoke stores, and then related it back to 46 so we can maintain those definitions throughout our ordinances. So there wouldn't be any contradictions or they wouldn't have anything that would be in that it wasn't or was conflicting, I'm sorry, is the word I'm looking for. Okay, in this particular one, what we decided to do was add in our land use table where we would call out retail, tobacco, vapor, and smoke stores and allow them with special use permit in B1, B2, and B3. And then also we would allow them by right or permitted through both of our industrial areas. And again, we, in doing so, we wanted to have some exceptions to that. So we have a brand new section in section 118-326, which is called out retail, tobacco, vapor, and smoke stores. And these are the two requirements that they also must meet, which is 1,000 feet of a church, place of worship, school, public park, or hospital, or another retail tobacco, vapes, and smoke shop. Okay, and then it also it tells you the measurement or how you were to measure that, and it goes back to another location where just so we can stay consistent throughout the ordinance. And again, as we usually do, and just so you can be aware that we made a comparison to other cities. This one was a little bit more deep dive where we talked about, we went and looked at Garland, San Antonio, Abilene, Tyler, Longview, and I think there was one more, might have been Lufkin. I just couldn't fit it on there without it being too smushed. But again, yes, basically what this shows us is that most other municipalities have either a version of either calling it a tobacco smoke shop or head shop is what they were referring it to. And then either they were allowed by SUP. There were a couple that were permitted by right in other industrial locations, but most of them were allowed by SUP in these other more commercial locations. And again, with exceptions or distinguishing requirements as we are proposing with ours. What I wanted to show you was, oh, for goodness sakes, that we created a map here. It is a little bit busy, but I wanted to show you is that these, from what we can tell from the appraisal district and what these particular types of uses are called out, is that these are the smoke or vape shops that have come up, which have the little
The red dot
the red
thing.
dot, yeah. It has a name, I just can't remember. what it
Teardrop.
is. Teardrop, yeah, let's call it.
Hey, we just approved
Call it a
signs
teardrop
like that.
flag, right there. So, and then around that, you'll see like kind of a purplish, bluish buffer. And that buffer is the 200 feet, or I'm sorry, 1,000-foot buffer from that location. And then all of the other symbols, as you can see in the legend, there's churches, hospitals, and schools that are all called out. And if you will, and think about that, in each of those respects, you would put 1,000-foot buffer around each of those. And so you can see for the rest of the city, these vape shops or smoke shops would still be allowed, but they would be limited in scope. And they would be kind of pushed to our periphery and into our industrial areas. So I wanted to give a shout out to our GIS department. They did a great job. They have a lot of great knowledge and data that is shown here. And so I thought this was a good representation of how the city would look if this type of use would be pushed to.
Would the ones be grandfathered in that are already,
Okay,
ma'am.
that was what I was going to ask. So, the industrial, it's just by right, so we're not going to require any SUP. And for them to do an SUP, will you walk me through, because I'm new, or what does that mean? They come here and they put in a request and it goes through kind of the process?
It would be very similar or exactly the same as a zoning map amendment change.
Okay.
But it would give you the opportunity to view what's going on around it. And then if you feel or compelled to add any conditions to it, then you could say, well, because it's adjacent to X, Y, and Z, we would like to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, and gives a lot of latitude to the city to put restrictions into it, and we typically, within reason, add some things in there, and generally, the applicant offers those restrictions, or those limitations, so.
Yeah, and sometimes, what we do as staff is we try to kind of guide them a little bit too, just so, we help them out with that because we know what you're looking for. And then if there was something that we missed, then we can always add it in as we present it to you. So with that, we would also recommend that or staff would recommend the amendment to the ordinance as we presented it.
Which defines it as their primary business of being that. Correct?
Yeah, so what would happen is that we have changes for the definition in 46 and in 118. And then we would also add in the land use table or the matrix, where we would add in that type of use. And then also within B1, B2, and B3, we would have it as a special use permit or an SUP. And then and then the industrial areas or districts, they would be allowed by right.
Okay. Any questions for Nathan on this one?
So if convenience stores, that's not targeted in this,
No,
right? This is specifically to or businesses, that's their primary product. Okay.
And that's what I was
Correct.
looking at too.
So if you look at the definition on page
Which page?
36
Yep.
of 81,
it excludes those,
Yeah, grocery stores,
Departments.
department stores, and
Yeah.
convenience stores are excluded.
and that's what I was looking to make sure too, so.
Yeah, I could just see that being a hard one for staff to keep up with. Does
And-
Lily have questions?
Do you have any questions, Lily, by chance?
My only question is to clarify that we are not including the university in this, are we, Nate?
No.
No.
Okay, just making sure, because I reread it and just want to clarify. Okay, we're good.
We'll close or open this up for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to address the commission on this matter?
Mostly I have a couple of questions.
Oh, you gotta give us your name and address.
Andrew Shep, I live technically outside the city, but I have a business in the city called Nacogdoches Cigar Company. And my only concerns are if we're changing the definitions. You know, we only sell premium cigar products or premium tobacco products, and I'd rather not be lumped in with the other objectionable businesses, and primarily because the current definition allows us to allow our customers and members to smoke indoors in our private area, and that would be if that went away, that would be pretty detrimental to our business, and so we just want to make sure. We'd rather not be included, and so maybe if there was a way to carve out, you know, a premium tobacco shop, and that's been done in other situations in other places, and I'd be happy to do some. So I'd be happy to do some legwork on making a recommendation, but
Yeah.
that's kind of our concern, and not that we, you know, we share the concerns about these vape places opening up everywhere, but I just don't want us to get lumped in, you know, inadvertently. If it's intentional, then
No, I
that's fine too. But
I think that's in a different
No,
section.
I don't want to be overlooked. I don't want
That's
to
what I'm trying
want to get in
Tobacco.
by accident.
fair enough, Andrew.
Fair point.
Nathan, do you have a?
Yeah, I'm just looking because I know, just give me 1 second. You had some reference to actual tobacco by itself,
Mm-hmm.
and just wanted to,
Does it come under the retail tobacco store definition?
I think the section of the ordinance that talks about if you can smoke indoor or where you can smoke in a public area is in a different section, different from the definition of the,
So we're not touching that with this particular
yeah,
piece.
I don't think that's gonna affect that part of the business.
But he has a, so they have the
'Cause that's
the
an
private club in the back, just to, you know, gentleman's bar, smoke, whatever, excuse me. And then they have the retail in the front. Not a gentleman, excuse me.
Wow.
In the true sense of the word
Got a-
gentleman,
We got a new permit for you.
not referring to that.
can I?
But
I don't-
they retail
Do you have your
cigars.
ordinance? Can I see it?
So the only change in 46 is to the definition itself, not necessarily to any spacing requirements or anything with regards to
Right.
the use in a facility or something like that.
Is that the same definition that's used in the indoor smoking ordinance? That's what came to mind primarily for me. The spacing I'm not concerned about.
Right, you're not concerned about the zoning
Right,
issue.
yeah.
Right, so none of the indoor use language in the rest of that part of the ordinance was changed in any way. It was just the definition of a retail tobacco store to kind of be more encompassing, I guess.
And then also, I mean, and Michael made a very good point, is that your current location would be non-conforming if that was the case, and it wouldn't be impacted by this
Right.
whatsoever. The only impact it would have is that if you were to open another location up.
Right.
And so, but it sounds like we'll make sure that it will be 100% on that, but we'll take a peek, but I don't think it's gonna impact you.
Okay, yeah. That's it. That was all my my concern there.
You good with that, Andrew?
I'm good with that.
Okay. You don't need Ted Smith calling that either, so.
I'll report back to the rest of them.
Okay, we'll close public comment. Any other conversation amongst the commission? And do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the, well, that's a great question. We accept the recommendations as outlined in the book. I don't, what do you want me to say for that?
If you could just cite the.
Yeah, as a line list.
You can read that if you want to.
You just read the long one for me.
Um,
I make a motion that we accept the recommendations to the City Council for Ordinance Amendment to Chapter 46, Health and Sanitation, Article 3, Smoking Pollution Control, and Chapter 118, Zoning, Article 1, and General, Article 3, District Regulations, and Article 4, Supplementary District Regulations to regulate the use of retail tobacco vapor smoke store.
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Second.
All opposed say same. Okay, unanimous with the 4 that are here. And just for clarity, doesn't impact their business relative to anything they're doing there.
That's correct.
Okay. If they were gonna move next door to another location,
So section 46-106 is the section in of the code that's and it hasn't changed. It's still the
Okay.
same. It's in a where smoking is not regulated, and that would
Yeah.
fall under that exemption.
okay.
Yeah, I just didn't know how the definitions would work, if it was, you know how codes are all.
No, they got retail, they retail tobacco there too, but non-impact. Okay. Cool. Okay, moving on to regular agenda item C, 4C, excuse me. Consider a recommendation of the City Council to amend Chapter 118 zoning, Article 2 Administration, Division 1 generally, Section 118-141, protest a proposed change in zoning to change the word commission to city council.
Yes, Chairman, Commission members, this item is again, one of the items we wanted to bring before you. The summary of this particular one is that part of when staff is, when we have lulls or low time, we're always looking to improve our codes and whatnot, and so we make little notations as to, or if we find that when using this and we're applying it to a real life situation, we see where things might not be working correctly, right? So we make little notes, and we want to bring these text amendments before you. So this was one of those ones where we had a list of things that we wanted to get done, and this was low-hanging fruit. Basically, it's a very simple correction. The reason why this was there was if and when the commission did not approve it, it was going back to the commission to be or brought forth to the Planning and Zoning Commission when it should have been just directed to City Council. So it was causing an unnecessary step, and this is really just a quick correction, and it also aligns with the Texas Local Government Code.
Okay.
Okay. So with that being said, staff recommends making this correction under 118-141.
Okay. Any questions by the commission? Lily, any questions on this one?
No questions.
Okay. We'll close or open it up for public comment. See, Amy? Ben? Would anyone like to address the commission, virtually or otherwise? Okay. We'll close it. Open it back up for commission discussion. And if nothing, then we'll consider a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the City Council to amend Chapter 118 zoning, Article 2 administration, Division 1 generally, Sections 118 to 141, protest of proposed change in zoning to change the word commission to city council.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say same. Unanimous with who's here. Thank you. Moving on to 4D. Consider a recommendation to amend Chapter 118 zoning, Article 2 administration, Division 3, Board of Adjustment of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Nacogdoches, Texas, to clarify Board of Adjustment appeal procedures by revising the number of days to file an appeal and whom may appeal city planner decisions. Turn it over to you, sir.
All right, sir. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this item was also something that we felt that was necessary because it was, again, aligning us with Texas Local Government Code, and which is something that it wasn't done. It was an oversight, we assume, for when the actual change occurred back in 2019. So, So basically, the summary of this is that when we were going through the Board of Adjustment, we had some rules and procedures. We were adopting new changes to the manual that they have for the Board of Adjustment, and we noticed that there were some inaccuracies that were happening between not only the rules and procedures book, but what is currently within our Chapter 118 zoning ordinance. So to ensure that we were aligning with the local government code, we wanted to make sure that we met the minimum requirements, and basically these changes that we're proposing to you basically are to mimic exactly what it says in the local government code. So it tells us who's available if there is a change to something that is happening to not a specific piece of property, but then there's also requirements for when there or who can actually appeal when there is something that's related to a specific piece of property. There's also a change to appeals must be filed no later than 20 days, which currently it states 90 days. And so that's a big change. There were some comments about that, but again, that is what the state law states, and we have to meet at least minimum. Now, we can be more restrictive,
Right.
but that would mean that we would reduce those number of days, if that makes sense. And then also, hearings must be conducted no later than 60 days from filing of a Board of Adjustment appeal. So those were some of the changes that we needed to do. Very straightforward. I'd be happy to walk through and go through the actual wording if you'd like, but it is before you, and staff would recommend approving it as presented.
The only question I have is the 60 days statutory too, relative to Texas law? 60 days of hearing it?
Yes.
Okay. So all that's conforming with
That's
state law?
Section 211.
Okay.
I think it's .006.
Yeah, so this is the update we talked about at our last big meeting.
Yes, sir.
Yep, okay, cool. I have no questions.
Ruth, Lily, any questions for Nathan?
No questions.
Okay, we will open it up to public comment. Is there anyone that would like to address the commission here in person or virtually? Okay, we'll close public comment and open it up for commission discussion. Is there any other discussion on the matter? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendations to amend Chapter 118 zoning, Article 2 administration, Division 3, Board of Adjustments of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Nacogdoches, Texas, to clarify Board of Adjustments appeal procedures by revising the number of days to file an appeal and whom may appeal city planner decisions.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say same. Unanimous with who's here. Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Moving on to 5, discussion and possible actions on future agenda items. A planning and zoning member may inquire about a subject for which notice has not been given. A statement of specific factual information or the recitation of existing policy may be given. Any deliberation shall be limited to a proposal to place the subject on an agenda for a subsequent meeting.
I'd like to propose that we place on our agenda for next time we meet about Ruth and I on the, what is it called? Is it a joint committee?
Nacogdoches zoning ordinance.
City of
That thing.
Nacogdoches
Just kind of how this board would like to operate,
Okay.
so that we're there listening, bringing it back, and kind of just a general reporting process. I think if we could have that out, spelled out in writing and clean, that's the HR side of me, put it in writing,
There you go.
make my life a lot easier.
You got that, Amy? Thank you. Any other future agenda items to discuss, would like to put on the agenda? Okay. If there's nothing else, we will adjourn. Time is 5:44 PM. Lily, was that good?
You did a fabulous job.
Ah,